New York, and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning. On Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning. The beautiful Laura Stiles Rosenberg, my friend Yonasda Lonewolf is back on the program. Now, I've known you for several years, and we've had you on several times talking about many different things.
Yes.
Even Standing Rock and what went on with the tribes out there.
Yes.
In the Dakotas and the Dakota tribe and all that. Now you have a show on BET, Copwatch America, which just premiered last week. What's this about?
So Copwatch America is about police brutality. Of the work I do around police brutality and activism. They've been following a crew from Atlanta as well as New York. It was from a documentary called Copwatch that was on Netflix, and so they turned into a 10-part docuseries about people of whether they're going around cop watching and for me, I deal with the aftermath after it goes viral. 4 of my cousins in Pine Ridge, South Dakota was murdered by police.
Wow.
8 of my friends have been murdered by police, and 2 of them were their children. And so I deal with this from a personal perspective, and it's really, really great. It's, drama in regards to us and our and what we're dealing with and fighting police terrorism.
Now, people may be watching this interview, and you have a very up spirit. And normally when you see somebody say they've lost 8 friends from any sort of murder, let alone murder at the hands of basically the government, right? And people who are supposed to be out here saving lives, right? You have a very bright spirit, but you're also associated with the Native American, the Indigenous First Peoples, right?
Yes.
And so I guess what I'm trying to get to is unpacking and dealing with trauma and these things have been a part of your entire life.
Yes, it has been. My mother was in prison for 7 years as a political prisoner. I've been homeless. I've been through a lot of stuff, and I would say spirituality is a major thing. We have our ceremonies, which is the Sweat Lodge ceremony, Inipi ceremonies. So I try my best to go home as much as I can to be able to to be able to detox, and get back. I realize that I have a purpose to heal people, and in that, my mother used to say, when you're giving out joy, you bring it back in. When you're giving out love, you bring that back in. You have to always make sure that you restore yourself back. And so as I'm getting older, through wisdom and experience, I always try to make sure I do that.
Now, you reached out to me a few months ago, and we were talking about things that we could do for kids. And, we've been running around in New York with the Peace Mobile and Erica Ford and, showing up trying to let everyone know that there are spaces, right? Like the Peace Mobile shows up to neighborhoods that have been traumatized with gun violence and dealing with gang issues, where there's this space of people who want to heal you, just like what you were talking about with, putting positive energy into people's lives in any way, shape, or form. And then you and I started talking about some of the things that you're on the front lines of dealing with the tribes in the North and South Dakota area, which are known as the Lakota tribes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Lakota, Nakota, Dakota.
Got it.
Yes.
So, and these are the tribes that everyone saw in the mainstream media who were protesting the pipeline at Standing Rock, which was basically ended up getting done because Donald Trump became president. Obama had put a halt to it, but even Obama hadn't all the way shut it down. Am I understanding it correct? It was once the pushback of the people. Obama slowed it down, but didn't stop it. And then Trump came in,
and that was his first order of business. Like right on the first day, he said, "Let's get these pipelines built." And not only the Dakota Access Pipeline, but also the Keystone. So even though...
And that's Yellowstone National Park, right?
No, Keystone is the oil pipeline from Canada all the way down to the Mississippi, entire Mississippi River. So we are about to prepare for that fight.
And then just for the audience, the biggest fear of those pipelines was the leaking and the damaging, the poisoning of the land, which already happened, correct?
Yes. Well, in one of the pipelines, not that one we was fighting against, but in South Dakota, it did leak. And
what does that mean?
Well, the pipe, when you see you think that an oil pipeline goes underneath. When you physically see an oil pipeline, it's on top.
Of the ground.
And then and the way that they build it, it's that crude oil. So they're not building it sturdy. I mean, it's always going to be something. It's going to be a leak because it's above ground.
And it's built in fragments, right?
Yeah,
and so those fragments, they can leak. Obviously, weather issues take place, the seals bust, and the crude oil leaks into the ground.
Seeps into the land, poisoning everything.
That's bad?
Everything,
You don't want that? You don't want oil in the ground?
I don't think you want crude oil leaking.
No. And then your water, because you can't, and see, we use Missouri River is attached to 200 rivers. That means that's also, so then imagine the Mississippi River. So it's not just a Native American issue, it's a water issue. It's all of America because we get our water from the rivers. So we really was fighting for our water, and we're about to start fighting for our against the Keystone XL. Wow.
And beyond protest, can you... and the people who have indigenous rights to these land and have been recognized by the government, what other than protests can be done?
Petitions, reaching out to their politicians, and not voting for those, and also divestment. Every major bank is investing in these oil pipelines. And as I fought against police brutality, I'm dealing with the police and following and, being antagonized and things like that. But when I was fighting against Standing Rock, against the oil pipelines, that was a whole nother beast because that's investors, that's banks. And that was Tiger Swan, which is a security firm that was hired by Energy Transfer that was basically like Blackwater. And they came in to infiltrate Standing Rock. So we're dealing with a whole nother militia, CIA type of thing. And so divestment, so Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the list goes on. So
when you say a whole other level, you're talking about basically what we see on a global scale where people come in and destabilize communities because then they can pull these individuals who are a problem away from the community so that they don't bring attention to the money and things that they're trying to get.
That's exactly what Tiger Swan did. And The Intercept did a huge story on it. It ended up being a huge story in regards to a whistleblower that said that they came in to infiltrate Standing Rock.
And what that is imprisoning people, putting people in jail.
And then also they wanted to make sure that they kept it a Native American fight through media. So remember when I came here and we did a huge media run, you guys were a part of those transcripts. Right. In regards to, we brought Native Americans and we was talking about Standing Rock. So even you all was looked at as well.
Oh, no, they looking at it?
Yeah, they always looking at it.
You nervous?
You all.
No, I'm good.
You nervous? Everybody good?
No.
I think you'll go down first.
You think you'll come for me first?
Yeah, I think so.
Nah.
You think they're going to get us first?
They're going to get the white guy first.
No.
Absolutely.
I wasn't white
and
for nothing.
And you're Jewish too? Yeah.
I'm holding on
for you.
They will or will not?
No, they will.
Will?
Yes.
They coming for you first.
They coming for you
because all that's gonna happen with me is that everybody's gonna be like, "Yeah, he talks shit. Of course, his name is Ibrahim.
Yeah, well,
that's Ebro.
Yeah, you know me. I'm King Snowflake. They're gonna come for me first, but then I'm gonna go. No, I was an agent. I'm really down with Kushner and them. I'm one of those.
No, that's how you gonna do us? You gonna flip sides?
I gotta do what I gotta do, man.
Yo, you gonna flip sides?
What am I supposed to do?
Yo, your dad will be so disappointed.
Be awful.
But the white folks that did come to the white allies that did come to Standing Rock, they was like, we're here to get arrested. So we called them the arrestables.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you have to go down first.
All right, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yo, front lines, my guy.
It wasn't that hard.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard. I'm willing to be convinced either way.
Get your shirt that says arrestables.
Yeah.
So, Yonasda, with what's happening with the First Nations people around the country, right? Even here locally, right?
Yes.
So you have tribes that have on the reservations, they may have casinos or, they do other businesses, whether it's oil drilling, natural resources and things that happen on the reservations that there's things that they can do to make money.
Yeah.
Okay? But on a whole, when we talk about First Nations people in America, you're talking about people who have been disenfranchised, murdered, alcoholism, their land has been taken from them, their heritage has been erased, decimated, right?
Yeah.
Almost to the point where we've seen, who was the stand-up comedian that was like, who's really fucked over? Black people complaining. Tell me the last time you saw 2 Native American people. Yeah, right? I think it was Chappelle made that joke.
Yeah, he
or something
did.
like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, trying to bring light to something that is horrific, right? We're sitting next to you. A lot of people see you. They're gonna be like, "That's a black woman."
Yeah.
Right. But you're a Native
Is she
American
confused?
woman.
Why is she dressed up as
But you're
a Native?
Your mother's Lakota and your father was black.
Yeah.
Yes, is that it? But you stay very involved on the reservation, and you told me that those tribes, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota, are the poorest tribes in the nation.
My reservation in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, is the poorest community.
Got it.
In the United States. This is poorer than any other community, you know. And so being black and Native, I always feel like I'm the oppressed under the oppressed. Because as I'm screaming and fighting Black Lives Matter, Native Americans are murdered at a higher rate than any other race by police. So when I'm talking about like 4 of my cousins been murdered, and this is in recent years, like in the last 5 years, on my reservation, there's no hashtag for their names. There's no hashtag for Clarence Leading Fighter. There's no hashtag for Moses, for Jeffrey. But we hear hashtags for so many black people that are.
How is that? How is it possible? Is it because of the percentage of the population? Because the population's so small and people are still getting killed by the police?
And it's rural, right?
And it's way out. It's far away. But even here, the Shinnecock is not that far from here. It's only like an hour from here, the Shinnecock Nation. I think
that's in Long Island, right?
Yep, right in Long Island.
Are there different laws in the reservation?
Yeah, so we're a nation within a nation, so we are sovereign. Okay. But we also have federally recognized, meaning that the federal government recognizes us. But there's over 500 federally recognized tribes and non-federally recognized tribes here in the United States. And so we're still here. And that's the thing. We're not getting recognized like that because people think we're historical monuments. The only time people are, as a matter of fact, we're going into November, which is Native American Heritage Month. And a lot of people think that, the only time to talk about Native Americans is so-called Christopher Columbus Day and so-called
people trying to change it to
Indigenous Peoples Day and then Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
And it's like, no, we're not historical monuments. We're not street names. We are still here. And that's why I love that, that you all are always being able to give me a platform to also bring other natives with me to be able to talk about that we're still here.
How many Native Americans are there still in the United States?
I believe right now there's like over 20 million. 20, 25, I think around that. I don't want to misquote.
That's a substantial number that I think most people would be surprised to even hear.
Yeah. It's amazing. And even on my reservation, we're dealing with a major suicide as young as 12 years old. Suicide is huge. So hope is the major thing. Like when you reached out to me with Puma, shout out to Puma and to Jay-Z to be able to help all of these youth on my entire reservation get clothing and book bags and shoes and everything. It's like, they're like, oh my God, someone recognized and knows that we're here. I mean, when you look on television, are you seeing any Native American actor, singer, rapper? We just got our first 2 politicians. So they're not seeing themselves. These are my nieces.
The woman in Minnesota? There's Lieutenant Governor, I think, or something like that. She's a very, I saw that. But honestly, I was like, wow, because it's so rare to see Native Americans in the public eye like that.
Yeah, so imagine you're not seeing yourself.
Anywhere, right?
Anywhere. So if you're a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, you're going to feel hopeless. No one is recognizing you.
Well, then if you're in public school off the reservation, the story's terrible. It's it's worse. It's probably worse than the slave story because at least when you're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, you can at least, if you at home are doing the work to go and look back at what was going on pre-slavery, right? And you're looking at what's happening in Africa pre-slavery, right? Because that's the story didn't start with slavery, right? Mm-hmm. When you're a Native American, it's complete erasure of.
They're like, we took your land. There's no more Native Americans here. Thanksgiving, we all had a kumbaya, and look at this is what it is.
Yeah, when slavery was happening, there was still an entire continent where people were still good and living. That existed,
right?
And our entire continent was taken over. It was here. And we call it Turtle Island, which is Canada, North America, South America, the Caribbean. So that was all indigenous. And then now we're like everyone.
And the Arawak Indians were erased.
So-called.
So-called.
Yeah, because there's still Arawaks today. Like exactly like with Mayans. There's a lot of Mayans today. And they think like, oh, they're an ancient civilization.
Right.
Like, you know, how colonial is that? Like to say that I took over and you're nowhere, you're not here anymore. Like, no.
I just heard the story the other day, and please correct it if it's historically inaccurate, from a friend of mine who was saying that when the Vikings first came to America, they tried to come to the middle of the country and to the middle of the continent, to the U.S., what eventually became the U.S., and were basically completely run off by the Native Americans, and then ended up being like, bump that, this is not worth it, and went all the way north, which is how they ended up all the way north. And of course, this conversation came up because the Vikings were playing the Redskins on television.
Wow.
And we were like, and my friend was like, you want to know something crazy? Is that the Vikings and the Native Americans actually battled, and the Native Americans just sent them completely running to another part.
Well, I want to believe that story.
I would love to. Is it not true?
Yeah, I do.
Is it not true? Or we don't know? It could be true.
No, we don't know. But I want to say it's true.
It sounds. I know. I was like,
it sounds very accurate.
I'm gonna do some research right now.
But you know, even the fact that we even mascots.
Right.
You know, imagine. I mean, children that are like, I'm not a Redskin. That's like, you know, or I'm not an Indian, and the tomahawk chop. Right. That's so disrespectful.
And it's just like racist
and then who
cartoon.
is speaking up for all of the Native Indigenous children all across this nation that's saying that I recognize you. You are still here. You are not a mascot. You are not a costume. You are not Pocahontas. Right. You know? So that's why I always feel like I'm the oppressed under the oppressed.
Well, and also, too, you know, there's a lot of conversation, and you are privy to this in Atlanta, you know, the Southeast region and the East Coast in particular, you know, African tribes had traveled across the Atlantic Ocean before the transatlantic slave trade.
Yes.
And so you had black people, you know, who are here, you know, thousands of years.
Yes.
You know, and so you see, like, even when you see the Shinnecock or you see any of these tribes of the Northeast and Eastern region, you look at the tribes and they look black.
Yeah.
And because they are black. And a lot of people think they don't know Native Americans, and you might actually know Native Americans. They were just black. Like, you know, my grandmother, my father's side, are Cherokee, and there's a black Cherokee nation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And of individuals of Cherokee and African descent, where long before the slave trade.
Yeah, and I see that, and also too, I gave Jadena a beaded necklace, something that I beaded. It was the 4 directions, and he was looking at it, and he said, "Wow, that looks Kenyan." You know, and so when the beautiful part of being indigenous, original people, is the fact that our similarities are in our food, and it's in that drum.
Yeah, the drum.
That drum, and then our beadwork and our regalia. And you'll be able to see the similarities in that. And the Seminoles in Florida, they look like the Ivory Coast of Africa, of how their cloth and their, you know, how it looks, you know. Everything just looks, we're all, in our native way, we say matakiasi, which means we're all related. So it's already in our teachings. In our medicine wheel is the 4 directions of our people. So we're all related, we're all connected. We just have to know that and feel that and do that.
And we have to teach it, right?
Yeah.
We have to relearn it, we have to teach it, we have to share it, and then we have to share it with other people to let them know that we aren't just isolated groups of people, that we all are connected, as you pointed out.
Exactly.
You told me that your community was the poorest in the nation. You reached out, and I was like, well, what are you guys doing? Like, you know, somebody tells me they're from the poorest community in the United States, and I know them. I immediately go, okay, so what are we doing? Like, how do we?
How does one help?
Yeah, what happens next? Like, what goes on? So you actually said, I asked, you know, how can we help? You sent me that there were 2,000 kids, 2,000. And so I reached out to Jay-Z, who has Puma. Who Jay was like, all right, let's do it, connected me with the heads of Puma, and they sent and took care of every single kid.
That's pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
They were book bags, shoes, clothes, went in the factory, shipped it all out there.
Yep, hoodies.
And it's already there.
It's already there. So we're gonna do a big giveaway November 8th in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and I just cannot wait to see the look on these children's face.
And so we were trying to figure out how to get there. I'm in South Africa. Everybody's traveling, whatever. But I wanted to make sure that we had the conversation, right? Because we were actually looking at flights to get there. Yo, them flights ain't cheap.
I know.
No, it's not the easiest place to get to.
Getting to Pine Ridge is...
I even told you, I was all like, we may have to like move this back. It's 1,000 from Atlanta.
No, it's and then you fly into what?
Rapid City, South Dakota.
Rapid City, and then you drive an hour and a half to get to the community.
That's usually why I drive. I'm a driver.
Because it's all so expensive and annoying to fly.
Yeah, and most natives drive. Like, so that's another thing. You're like, why did you drive here from Atlanta? Like, I'm a native. Like, that's the native side of me. We drive everywhere.
Got it.
I guess we don't like planes. I don't know what it is, but
well, you probably want to see the countryside.
Yeah,
I mean, it's your land. You know, it's your country. You want
to
check
it out. And
then
you saw, like, I took Tori Russell and from Ferguson and a group from activists from Ferguson, and right when we got on my reservation on that border, it was a beautiful buffalo that came running.
You sent me that video.
Yeah, just came on the side of our van.
Wow,
and that was like a good sign. That was good medicine to say, like, your journey back home.
She sent me that video. I was like, that joint turn and flip y'all car over. And she was like, they don't trip like
that.
They're
peaceful.
I was like, okay.
You have to be one with the land,
Ebro.
Okay.
You are one with the buffalo.
There you go.
You run. Yeah, and then you get
your name. I want no smoke with a buffalo, man. Zero smoke.
You'll get your name, one with the buffalo.
Right.
One with the Tatanka.
So the giveaway is November 8th.
Yes.
It was my pleasure to actually be able to facilitate that and help out with that.
Yonasda, if anyone wants to like donate, do you guys have a website or anything that people can get more information and possibly pitch in?
They could reach out to indigenouspeoplesmovement.com. Yeah.
And your show, which is Copwatch.
Yes, Copwatch America.
Wednesday night and every Wednesday night.
Every Wednesday night at 11 o'clock p.m. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yonasda Lonewolf. Look for her on the gram. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.